A very good morning to all our dear viewers, and welcome to this talk of Global Education and Training Institute. And today on this talk show, we have invited none other than Dr. Ujjwal Kumar, who has joined us all the way from Kolkata. Mr. Kumar, who has studied in Banaras Hindu University and Pune University, and has also been a graduate from Hong Kong University. Dr. Kumar started his academic career as an assistant professor in the Department of Padi University of Pune, where he served from 2006 to 2016. He is currently working as an associate professor at the Department of Buddhist Studies, University of Kolkata. Dr. Kumar's area of interest covers textual study of Pali texts, especially from the 10th and the 11th century onwards, on which Brahmanical and Buddhist Sanskrit literature has a special influence on Pali. Today, he is here with us, and we would like to welcome you, sir, wholeheartedly to give your talk on a very important issue that you have covered and a very unconventional one, though Buddhist perspective of education. But before that, I would also like to tell our dear audience that his articles have been published in many referred and reputed journals in various parts of the world. Dr. Kumar has done extensive work in the field of Pali Niti literature and has published three books related to the same: Lokaniti, Maharananiti, and Pali Chanakyaniti. Dr. Kumar has been awarded the Maharshi Badarayana Vyas Sammana 2016 by the President of India for his contribution to Padi. It's over to you now, sir, and we would really love to listen to you on this important topic today.
Uh, Very good morning, and thank you, Sumita Bhatt Madam Ji, for this nice introduction. And I'm also very grateful to the NATI team for giving me this opportunity to speak on Buddhist perspective of education. As you have mentioned that this is very unconventional, but uh, from if you look from the Indian historical point of view, Buddha was supposed to be the best teacher, and even the Buddhist likes to call him as a teacher, as a sattva, and teacher of not only the human beings, but the teacher of also God and every beings. He is known as the virtue of the Buddha. One of the virtue of the Buddha is Sattva Dev Manusanam, the teacher of deities and human beings. Here I am not going to cover this is not possible to cover the entire picture of Buddhist education with this limited time frame and lecture, but I would like to specific myself. I would like to limit myself with the very early Buddhist teaching of idea of Buddhist education, and I will focus through the Pali text, early Pali text only. And my lecture will be divided into 4 or 5 parts. And first, I would like to start with the introduction. Buddhist thought and practice came to be known as an evolutionary phenomena in Indian history with the great awakening of Gautama the Buddha. For centuries, the Buddha is known as a religious leader, a philosopher, a social reformer. But first and foremost, as I said, the Buddha was known as awakened teacher, Sattva Dev Manusana. He was awakened to not only the nature of human experience, but also about the way to wake up others. As a great teacher, he had realized actual problems of human life and taught innumerable people the ways to overcome and transform their difficulties. His teaching, in short, is known as Dhamma. That is a way of living which leads to awakening. When I say Dhamma, that is not in the sense of religion, at least. The Dhamma he taught, the exemplary life he lived, and the community of Dhammic learners or sister and brothers, known as Bhikkhu and Bhikkhunis, can be regarded in the contemporary world as a system of education. Though it has been widely known as Buddhism, a religion or a philosophy. Hence, the so called Buddhism is none other than a pre modern tradition of education. And this terminology, when I call Buddhism as education, it may be a subject of question or subject of challenge. But how one should look the Buddhist Buddha or the Buddha's teaching is their own idea or something like that. So I would like to see the Dhamma or the Dhamma teaching as from the education point of view. That is the point of view of Sikha. Pali, we call it Sikha. Buddhist education, as we know, originated in India at the time the Buddha is starting his career in the 5th century BCE and spread to different Asian countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, China, Thailand, Tibet, Bhutan, etc. And nowadays, we know that Buddhism or the Buddhist teaching is spread whole the world. And Buddhist education have contributed significantly to the development of education, not only in India, but entire world. Now, before going to what the Buddha taught, we have to know the concept of and purpose of education. Although there is a vast body of literature about what the concept of education is, it is very difficult even for the uh, expert of education, or you can say the philosopher of education, to get a clear comprehension of this concept. In the East, where most of the time we follow, the concept of education refers to the process of developing the potential of man to the optimum level in order to enable him to lead a productive and happy life in a society. So the main goal in the Eastern education system is to the productivity. It is concerned the production of behavioral changes that are individually and socially desirable. But in India, education has always been regarded as a source of illumination and power, which transforms and ennobles human nature by the progressive and harmonious development of their physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual powers and faculty. So not we are not only the Indian education is not only concerned with the spiritual power, but also the physical, mental, and intellectual power. As I said, in the West, education is generally understood as a normative concept that denotes something, activity, or process, which is intrinsically worthwhile. We have to produce something to earn or to make money or something like that. Being worthwhile is a basic criterion to which a series of activities must conform in order that such activities can properly be identified as educational activities. According to a scholar like R.S. Peters, a family of process is identified as educational to the extent that it is able to initiate people into what is worthwhile in some depth and width of understanding, or contribute to the development of desirable qualities in someone. Regardless of the specific goals which education aims at, the notion of worthwhileness or desirableness is central to both Western and Eastern concept of education. The Buddhist concept of education also shares this central value of worthwhileness, but the meaning of worthwhileness is different here. When the Buddha decided to teach his first teaching, as you know, in the history, after the some request of so-called Brahma, etc., to his first five friends, he taught the Noble Eightfold Path to the groups of five devoted truth seekers, his friends. It was the Noble Eightfold Path that represented the most worthwhile learning item from the Buddhist perspective. I will explain below what is the Noble Eightfold Path here. According to Buddhist thought, this learning content ought to be understood and achieved by any human beings who wishes to live a meaningful life. So there is no barrier of class, gender, and reason, language to understand and to practice and to read this worthwhileness of Four Noble, the Arashtangic Marg or Eight Noble Truths. Since the Buddha and true Buddhist practitioners have actively engaged in the process of teaching the Noble Eightfold Path, there is a good reason to argue that from its inception, Buddhist tradition could be properly identified as an educational tradition. Therefore, to study the Buddhist concept of education is to understand the worthwhileness of the Noble Eightfold Path and on what grounds it is conceived to be worthwhile. In other words, the process of transmitting the Noble Eightfold Path and the purpose of transmission represent the Buddhist concept of education. The Buddhist use or the Buddha had many terms to indicate education. For example, in the Sutta Pitaka, one of the very early branch of Buddhist text, there are two terms which can be said to express the activities that are associated with the concept of education. First is the Sikha, and the second one is the Anushasani or Anushasan. Sikha, a Pali word, in Sanskrit or in Hindi we can call Siksha. Today we also use this word. Literally means study or training. The Buddha often used this concept when he talked about learning or training oneself, guiding principles, and training oneself in the guiding principles to others. Again, in the same Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, these words are used frequently to signify educational process involving three main principles. That is the core of Buddhism: Seal, Samadhi, and Panya. That is the Seal, morality; Samadhi, meditation or concentration; and Panya is wisdom. These three principles form an alternative pattern of the Noble Eightfold Path, and the term Sikha is used to name this threefold model of education. That is Tisso Sikha, threefold division of learning. This reveals a close connection between the Noble Eightfold Path and the Buddhist concept of education. While the term Sikha indicates the desirable that the individual is expected to do for his or her own sake, Anusasani denotes the activity that an individual is expected to do for the benefit of others. Anusasani means, or Anushasan means, instructions, advice. Also, we can call teaching Anusasan. The term Anusasan appears repeatedly in the Sutta, in the discourses of the Buddha, dealing with engagement in teaching the path of happiness to others. This is a task which the Buddha always emphasized. According to the Sika Sutra, a very important sutta even you will get in the Anguttara Nikaya of the Pali Tripitaka, known as Sika Sutra, the discourse on learning, study. I think this is the first known discourse in the human or in the Indian history where somebody is talking about the education. It is said that individual who practices for the benefit of their own and others are highly appreciated. So one should not learn only for the benefit of his own benefit, but also for the benefit of others. So the Buddha appreciated those who are quick and sharp in observations, memorizations, and mastering the doctrine, that is Dhamma, able to examine and understand the meaning of the Dhamma, and more importantly, instruct, inspire, incite, and gladden the listeners, the learners, with appropriate language. After these two terms, Sikha and Anushasani, there is other term we can also call very near to the term of education, that is the bhavana. Though this bhavana mostly used in the in the sense of meditation, but in Buddhist literature, this term also conceived under the term of education. Bhavana means application, developing by means of thought or meditation, or the cultivation of mind. That is called bhavana. So, in the scheme of threefold training, Tisso Sikha, Sil Samadhi, and Panya Sikha, bhavana refers to moral, emotional, and intellectual development. So, there are three principles of education, and actually, there are three essential aspects of human being. According to Buddhist tradition, the practice of bhavana is concerned with mental cultivation. We may use the word like samadhi nowadays, and peace, santi, equanimity, dispassion, and cessation of craving. That is the main goal of any Buddhist learner, to control the cessation of craving, which is supposed to be the uh, problematic. We all are in the problem due to this craving, due to the attachment with substance. So all of these elements are essential aspects of human being, and all are dealt within Buddhist education. It should be noted here that in Buddhist thought, knowledge cannot develop and reach the highest level unless it stands on a sound foundation of moral and emotional basis. So the Buddhist believe, or the Buddhist practitioners, or the listener or learners must have the moral or the morality as the base. Besides, the well structured program for practice of the Noble Eightfold Path and the Threefold Training is also a salient feature in the procedural sense of Buddhist concept of education. It is the combination of cognitive development and moral emotional foundation that makes a Buddhist education a holistic scheme. A holistic scheme. Of course, this scheme is to be carried out, learned, and practiced throughout one's life. It is therefore a holistic and lifelong education. Buddhist education is not the education for some period, but this is the lifelong education. Till now, I have just discussed so far about the Noble Eightfold Path, and it would be better if I speak few words in brief about this concept or this idea. And in order to say a few words regarding this Noble Eightfold Path, I rely on a very good book written by a great Sri Lankan scholar, Rahul Walpola. So here I am quoting the Rahul Walpola's, the idea about the Noble Eightfold Path. Walpola said that the fourth noble truth is that of the way leading to the cessation of dukkha is known as the middle path. This Noble Eightfold Path is also known as the middle path, and this is the outcome of the fourth noble truth, because it avoids two extremes. Why this is called middle path? Because this avoids two extremes. One extreme being the search for happiness through the pleasures of the senses, that is called kami sukam sukhallika anuyogo, Nowadays, we all are in the hunting of pleasures. We all are in the searching of pleasures. So the our if you see the modern education systems, uh, we are going for the educations to achieve more and more pleasure of the senses. The other being the search for happiness through self modification, that is the different forms of asceticism. In Pali, the word is Atkil Mathan Yoga. Having himself first tried these two extremes, the Buddha, and having found them to be useless, he discovered through personal experience the middle path, which gives vision and knowledge, which leads to calm, insight, and enlightenment. This middle path is generally referred to as the Noble Eightfold Path, in Pali known as Arya Attangiko Maggo, because it is composed of eight categories or division. That's why it is known as Arya Attangiko Maggo. And what are these Arya Attangiko Maggo? In short, I'm telling you that is first one is the right understanding, in Pali known as Samma Ditti, right thought, Samma Sankappa, right speech, Samma Vacha, right action, Samma Kammanta, right livelihood, Samma Ajiva, right effort, Samma Vayama, right mindfulness, Samma Sati, and right concentration, Samma Samadhi. Though these eight aspects of fold paths are meant for basically for the enlightenment or for the spiritual development, but I don't know. I think that these are also applicable to our day-to-day life for each and everyone, even for a student, even for a job seeker, or one who is in job, or one who is living a household life. So these eight factors aim at promoting and perfecting the three essential of Buddhist training and discipline, namely ethical conduct, that is seal, mental discipline, samadhi, and the third one is wisdom, panya, pragya. This is nothing but the three Buddhist principles of education. Further, I can say, I can enlarge it that these are the seal, samadhi, and panya is the three basic principles of education. First one, the seal, is the care-oriented principle of education. When you practice morality, you not only try to achieve morality in oneself, but you try to also contribute in the society through the form of care. So I call it care-oriented principle of education. That is the seal. Second one, samadhi, I wish to call it peace-oriented principle of education. Our education system must be the peace-oriented. We don't educate someone to kill others in any cost. We don't educate someone to kill here someone and to achieve something in heaven. So our education must be peace-oriented. And the third one, our education must be, or the Buddhist principle of education is, you can say, awakening oriented principle of education. That is called Panya Sikha. So this is the Seal Sikha, Samadhi Sikha, and Panya Sikha. So overall, I think I have just presented here the entire picture of the early Buddhist teaching in terms of our modern education system. Now come to see the role of Buddhist education. As I said, that Buddhist education aims at personality transformation into a highest form of humanity through ethics, intellectuality, and perfection. Better to call it human perfection. If someone has a problem to call it spiritual perfection, we may call it the human perfection. So I call it the aim or the role of Buddhist education is to provide the ethical teachings, intellectual teachings, and human perfection teachings. These three faculties of perfection of human life, no doubt, lead a man through mundane happiness, the worldly happiness, to the supramundane happiness, Again, this supramundane we can find in our own body, in our this phantom body, which is the highest achievement we all are equally looking for. All the beings are looking for peace, looking for happiness, and this through these practices we can achieve very easy. Therefore, the Buddhist education is grounded on the primary psychological need of all living beings, that is the peace. All living beings wants to live in peace. The Buddhist approach to education is also evident in that the Buddha intentionally engaged in the educational activity and declared that the practice of education can transform people and society. In 5th century BC, a person had such type of thought who said that a practice of education can transform a person, an individual, and society. According to Buddhist thought, instruction is a powerful lever for the transmission from immaturity to maturity, from imperfection to perfection, from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light. In the history of spiritual leaders, the Buddha was the first person who encouraged questioning. Now, till today, even in the university system I am teaching here, most of the time we discourage our students to ask questions. We're afraid with the questions. Not only the teachers, but today in this present scenario, our uh, educational teachers, spiritual teachers, or the leaders, also we all are afraid with the questioning. But the Buddha was the first person, you can say, one who one who praised for the questioning. And he said that though students are expected in our scenario, though students are expected to listen to the teacher with respectful attention, the Buddha did not expect the learner to be neither passive nor to ready to accept what was taught to him, to the learners. The Buddha never encouraged unquestioned acceptance of anything on authority of the teacher. That is why he laid down 10 principles of teaching, of education, you can say, and I love to call it research methodology. He was the first person who prescribed research methodology. Here in my university, at Calcutta University, I am the coordinator of PhD course, and I teach my student research methodology. And I found the teaching of the Buddha is the best way to teach research methodology. Here I am quoting you one great example of research methodology, where the Buddha said, first I quote in Pali, there is one sutta called Kesumati Sutta of Anguttara Nikaya, where Buddha said, Ma anusavasena, ma paramparai, ma iti kriyaye, ma pitak sampadanena, ma tak hetu, ma nay hetu, ma akar parivattakena, ma ditti nijjhanan khantiya, ma bhavarupataye, ma samano no garuti. What he said, I'm going to translate for you, that ma anusavena, do not believe in what you have heard. As a student, do not believe in what you have heard. Though the Buddha was preaching this to his followers, and nowadays we expect our followers only to follow without getting into argument. But he was the one who said that ma anusavena, do not believe in what you have heard. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down from many generations. Ma paramparai. Don't go in parampara. Don't go in traditions only. Ma iti kriyai. Do not believe in anything because it is rumored and spoken of by many. Now we know, due to this such type of rumored and false views, we killed someone only to hear that something's wrong happened in some such temple and some mosque or some places. So the Buddha, he said that ma iti kriyai, don't believe in anything because it is rumored. Further he said, ma pitak sampadanena, do not believe merely because it accords with your scriptures. Something is written down in your scriptures. Maybe that scriptures is known as sacred one, Don't believe it only because that is written down there. Further, he say, Ma tak hetu. Do not believe in conjectures, not only for the sake of tark. You start believing. Further, he said, Ma nay hetu. Do not accept anything by mere inference, and do not accept anything by merely considering the reason. Ma akar parivattakena. Then he said, do not believe in anything because it agrees with your preconceived notions. In modern research, most of the time we have already a notions. We already reached to the conclusion, and we try to support our conclusion through our writings. That is a very wrong perception idea for writing anything. So he said that ma ditti nijjan khantiya. Do not believe in anything because it agrees with your preconceived notions. Then he said, do not accept anything because it seems acceptable. Ma bhaburupataye. Something is acceptable to the society, and that's why you only accept. That is also not correct. One should must question it. And the last point, the 10th point, is a ma samno no garuti. Do not believe anything on the authority of the teachers or elders, thinking that they are respected. So if you look these 10 points, you will find that this was a very revolutionary person, one who raised to their student, one who raised questions. He requests to the listeners that you should ask questions, and not only to the spiritual leaders, but in your general in your daily routine. One should have asked questions. Nowadays, in particular movement, we are always obstructed to ask questions. We can't ask the question to in the classroom. We can't ask questions in the government, in the society, in our day-to-day problems. Even in our family life also, a wife can't ask questions to the husband. A husband can't ask questions to the wife, etc., etc. But here, not only from the spiritual point of view, but from the educational point of view, we can apply this, the methodology in our day-to-day life. A person, one who is raising such thing in 5th century BC. I know I have very limited time, only 40 minutes. So now I would like to come to the conclusion that to conclude, I can say that the Buddhist thought of education, in the Buddhist thought of education, a student is expected to be a critical experimentalist. And from Buddhist perspective, learning involves not only thinking, but it always connected to being mindful, experiencing, and transforming oneself. Therefore, teaching learning in true Buddhist sense is the process of mindful teaching and mindful learning. It is a cooperative activity taking place on the ground of interdependence of teacher and student. In Asia in general and in India in particular, today we may face problems like we have casteism, sectarianism, communalism, regionalism, etc., etc. We face violence, terrorism, etc. So, with the response of Buddhist education, we can develop a peace living personality in our society, in our day-to-day life, and we can establish a sustainable society. So this Buddhist education is, you may say that, is the very basic of Indian thought system, and we have to incorporate this system from school level to the university level. So, with these words, I would like to stop myself, and I would like to thanks again to the Neti and to the Bhatt madam here for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving us a wonderful insight into what Buddhist education is all about. The goal of Buddhist education is to attain wisdom, and the Buddha himself taught us that the main objective of our practice was to achieve this ultimate wisdom. The chief aim of Buddhist education has always been an all round development of a child's personality, and this includes his physical, mental, moral, and intellectual development too. So, thank you very much for giving us a wonderful insight into what Buddhist education is all about and how important and vital it is for each one of us to know that it should be carried on and taken on as a lifelong process and a lifelong learning process, and to adapt itself, the whole of it, the whole knowledge of it into our own lives, so that we emerge as a wonderful global citizen. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude our talk today. And that was Dr. Ujjwal Kumar who gave us this informative insight into the Buddhist education. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, all our dear viewers, for joining us this morning. And for more such Global Education and Training Institute sponsored talks, we would like all our viewers to join your hands with us for this disruptive education movement. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am.